Okay, we're going to get started. Good evening, everybody. If you haven't done this already, and I'm assuming you have, but would you just take a minute and make sure you know everyone's name at your table and one interesting fact about them? That's it. That's all I got for you. Names and one interesting fact about each person at your table. You got about 4 minutes for that. Go for it. How you doing? You getting through it? You got it? Did you learn anything amazing or shocking? Good. All righty. Well, again, thank you for being here, and thank you for those folks that are home watching us. Sounds like we have a group of people there as well. I want to find out who's here tonight in a couple different ways. First of all, would you please raise your hand if you were with us last week? Let me look around the room here. With us last week. Okay, so thank you very much. And this is probably redundant, but would you raise your hand if you didn't just raise your hand, just so I can see that too? Raise your hand if you're here. This is your first time here. Okay, good. Very cool. Hey, also, we want to know just a little bit of demographics here. Would you raise your hand if you have lived in this area for 30 years or longer? Look around the room. Okay. Would you raise your hand if you've lived here 20 to 30 years? Okay, 10 to 20 years. And 5 to 10? Under 5? Okay, under 1? Okay, awesome. Raise your hand if you are within the city limits. You live, not now, this moment, I know you are. Where do you live within the city limits, or if you know that to be true? Raise your hand, okay. Okay. All right, thank you. That's good. Just a bit of a recap from last week. As you know, we are meeting 4 times, actually, with the first 3 around 3 different really important discussions. Last week, we talked about housing, we talked about community. The idea, the concept that we're working on here is that sometime next year, the city has to have a comprehensive plan by state law. And this plan needs to be submitted actually in 2026, but they're planning on getting it done by December, is that right, of 25? That's the hope, right? So this is a plan that will be worked on by the folks at the city and city council and the planning commission, and it is a big deal, and it's required by the state, and they don't want to do that in a bubble or in a vacuum. They want as much input as possible. Got really great input last week. The topic last week was, first of all, the facts being that Leavenworth is going to be experiencing more population density based on changing regulations and zoning laws, et cetera, from the state as a mandate. And so the questions last week were around what makes a wonderful community, who do we want to have here in this community, how do we manage density and still maintain a wonderful quality of life. And there was so much, actually more than I expected, so many great ideas and so much involvement and so much passion around that. It was a really good meeting. We actually want to just really briefly share a little bit about what came out of that, especially for those folks that are new here tonight. But up here, who do we want to live here? Now, there was a lot more said than this, but these were like the highlights. These were the things that were said most often by most people. Full-time residents. People really spoke to wanting the people that work here to be able to live here. That was a really powerful theme last week. Diversity, and then people that are generous and friendly and supportive and care. That was definitely said by probably almost every single discussion group said something around these things up there. Next, we talked about quality of life. We talked about what makes for the kind of quality of life that people want. Again, there was more than this, but these were the things that were said most often. Walkability, bikeability, things being close. Local services, being able to get all the stuff you need right here. Improvements in the infrastructure, including the roads and the sewers and the sidewalks, et cetera. Safety, accessibility, that included lots of things, snow removal and fire prevention, et cetera, et cetera. Intentional planning and diverse input was mentioned by lots of different people. And then an emphasis on keeping open spaces and keeping green areas. And then we talked about how do we get there. And again, there was a lot of great comments and a lot of rich information that came out of that. I'll let you take a look up here, but emphasis on doing exactly what they're doing now, which is listening and getting a lot of input from the community, being proactive and intentional about managing the new growth, investing in infrastructure and services, transparency, collaboration, etc. I'll let you read the rest up there. Affordable housing, environmental considerations. So this is just a taste of it. Our last session in October is a chance for everyone to come together and really hear everything that was said in all 3 sessions, and to hear from the folks that have to now take all this information and do something with it. That's going to be a time for them to report out what they learned, what they're planning, at least at that point. It's also going to be a time for them to answer a whole bunch of questions that you have. And we had a lot of questions last week that we asked people to write down and put in one of the 4 different drop boxes. Same thing tonight. You'll see a drop box up here in the corner. You'll see one over here in the corner. You'll see one back here and out in the lobby. Am I right? Yes. So there's 4 drop boxes. There's not a ton of time tonight for question and answer, and so that's why we're doing it this way. If you would just, as you're thinking about your questions, track those and write those down, and then we'll get back to everybody in October when we meet. So last week was the issue of density and housing and community. This week, tonight, we're talking about sustainable tourism. So be thinking about that. We'll be asking you questions tonight about what does sustainable tourism look like, what does non-sustainable tourism look like. The next week, we'll be talking about the environment and the natural resources. So those are the 3 topics that will be then collated into the comprehensive plan. Does that make sense? Any questions about where we've been and where we're going here? All right. Last week, we took a little bit of time to talk about ground rules and for this kind of discussion. We're not going to repeat that entire process. It was great, by the way. I asked folks at their table to talk about, if we're going to have this kind of gathering, what are kind of the rules of the road for this to work, for people to really be able to be heard, and for this to be a safe place to have, the kind of psychological safety where we really can share what we really think. And the tables came up with just beautiful things, and we posted them on the walls, and it was fantastic. If you wouldn't mind, just little Reader's Digest version right here of that, and we'll do this all together. What are some of the things that we need to keep in mind as we participate in order for an evening like this to be successful and effective? I'll just let you maybe call out what you think we need to keep in mind as individual participants. Listen, really good listening. We probably don't need to go into what that looks like, but I think we all know the drill, right? Listening to each other, listening respectfully. What else? Yeah, stay focused, stay on topic. By the way, we're talking about the discussions you'll be having at your table. We're also talking about the time that we'll be reporting out. Anything else you can think of? Open to new ideas, right? To try to avoid the, my way or the highway, or I have the only right idea, but being open-minded, being listening, remembering that we all have, we represent a group of diverse opinions and experiences here. Good. Anything else? Yeah, keep your comments relatively short and sweet. We don't need any grandstanding, which, by the way, this all worked really, really well last week. Anything else? Sorry? Phone use? Yeah, try to stay present and put away your other devices, or at least not be distracted by those other devices. Good. Be kind. Yes, absolutely. Good. Anything else? Again, I just want to say I've been doing work like this for 30 years, and for the size of the group last week, I was just really impressed with the overall sense of community and kindness. It was a really pleasant evening, so let's do that again. Along those lines, just to repeat something from last week, The good news is we're not deciding anything tonight. And the reason I think that's good news is because we are coming from a really, lots of opinions, diverse perspectives. We don't need to argue. We don't need debate. We're here to share what we think. And the purpose, of course, is so that these people up here can listen. And so these are the listeners we have here in the room. These are the folks that are here to be Kara back here is going to be writing everything you say, and if you were here last week, you were probably amazed at how she did that, showing up here on the screen in real time. She's going to be writing what you say and listening. Kara works for the city here. These folks up here represent the city and the city council and the planning commission, and they really are here to hear what you have to say. So that's what this is all about. Time for you to discuss things at your table, share what you came up with, and then these folks listen. Now, one more hint about that, when you do report out from your table, I really do encourage you to do your very best to report out as much as you can from what you heard at your table, okay? You might have had some diverse opinions at your table. It's absolutely okay to share those diverse opinions out loud. You might have all been on the same page. That's good news too. So just let us know. You can have more than one person sharing out. It's up to you. All right, I think that was my long intro. I think we can get moving. I want to have Carl come up. Mayor Carl, come up and get us going here tonight.
Thanks, Mike. And again, thanks to all of you for coming. And again, I see many old faces from last week, but a number of new ones as well. And we appreciate your time and energy. It's a big commitment, I know, to come and spend 3, and now it's 6 for some of you. And if you come back next week, it'll be 9. It's a huge commitment. But besides the formal, Mike has mentioned the process that we have to go through from the state. And that's that comprehensive plan. And that is a visioning document for the city. But that's one section. That's the city. That's the little boundary here of 1 mile. But it's not the whole community, right? And this vision is about bigger than just the city, because it's all of us that are a part of this Upper Valley community. And so beyond just the inspiration of this being, we got to do a comprehensive plan, this actually, more than that, this is inspired by, and those of you here last week, you're going to hear the same spiel, but by that in the early 60s, that visioning process that was called LIFE, Leavenworth Improvement for Everyone. And again, back then in the 60s, it was about a dying community. It was about boarded up buildings. It was about economy that was non-existent for the most part. The 2 big engines of the economy were railroads and lumber mill, and both of those went away, and there was a real struggle. How do we get an economy so that the community can continue and we don't end up with the community completely gone and boarded up? So when I first ran for mayor in 2019, I said, it's time for another visioning process, because we went through that one. We're celebrating 60 years now, but 60 years has brought us a long way from what was going on back then. We don't have to worry about boarded up buildings downtown. But there's a new crossroads and a new time, and that's why this visioning process wants to be much more inclusive and, again, much more open to the whole community to say, help us, just like back then. We had to come together and vision, what do we want to look like down the road? What do we want to be? And it wasn't easy, and it wasn't universal, and not everybody said, oh yeah, let's just go Bavarian. It took time, it took struggle, it took a number of years before it really got traction. And it wasn't universal. There was people right from the get-go that said, nope, 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 too different. We're not going there. So any kind of visioning, we know we're going to have differences of opinion, and there's going to be different ideas about what we should look like going forward and how we're going to get there. But we won't get there if we don't get engaged and start the process and stick with it. And so partly what I want to just really encourage you all to do is don't think of this as three marks to check off that you've gone to those meetings and then we're done. This is meant to be a beginning, to whet the appetite, to get the conversation started so that they can continue. Last week we did talk about, because tourism now has really taken off, right? We don't have to worry about trying to get on the map. But here's the thing, tourism also brings with it some challenges. One of those is housing, and we talked about that last week. And again, if you weren't able to be here, you can see the video from last week. Also, there is an online survey that goes over all of these questions that you can give your input. And then when we come together, we'll have all of that info. And it's been over 800 that have responded to that online, as well as you folks here. So the other, now the challenge is, what's sustainable tourism look like? Now, please understand, we're not talking about no tourism. We're not talking about anti-tourism. We're talking about, how do you have tourism that integrates into the community and doesn't displace the community? How do you have something that is sustainable for all that are involved? Leavenworth improvement for everyone. Last week we talked about, we don't have enough of our workforce living here to be a sustainable community that can then sustain that tourism. One of the things that happens in a lot of tourism towns is that trajectory goes and you lose community, which is not just losing the workforce, but eventually, if you look at the trajectory and the worst case scenario and where it goes, you also lose the mom and pop businesses. They can't be sustained either in that trajectory. And you get those places that are basically empty, except for when they draw all those tourists and then they bus people in to serve them. And they're nice resorts, but they're not communities. And part of the charm, I swear, that people tell me all the time about why they love Leavenworth, they still get the sense there's a community here to welcome them. And that's what we have to maintain and make sure that we're able to keep, so that there's someone here to greet them when they come. So again, thank you for being here. Have those discussions tonight. Realize, with us that they're not to end here. They're going to keep going. And it's not just about the formal process. It's about really what we want to look like going forward and how we're going to work together to get there. So thank you for coming. That vision will be much better the more engaged you guys all are. And again, thank you, and let's get started.
Thanks, Carl. All right, first table discussion. On this one, you do not need to write anything down on a big piece of white paper. This is just discussion. The question is, why are you here? And I don't mean why are you here tonight. I mean, why are you here in this community? Why did you stay here if you've been here forever? Why are you still here? Why did you come here? What drew you here? Please share that with your table mates, and then we'll share some highlights together. Why are you here? Why did you come here? What drew you here? Why are you still here? Why? Why? All right, folks. Would you raise your hand? Would you raise your hand if you work in town? If you work in Leavenworth, or you have, keep that up for a minute, or you have worked in Leavenworth in the past? Hands up, okay. All right, thank you. Would you raise, okay, hands down, would you raise your hand if you own a business? Oh, quite a few people. Yay. Good, 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 good. Awesome. Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm going to ask if we have some microphone folks come on up. If you wouldn't mind having one or two people at your table stand up and give us just a summary of some of the things you heard at your table. Why are you here? Why'd you stay here? What drew you here? Etc. So who's going to go first? Here we go, over here.
We had people move here because of friends, boyfriends, and grandkids, and everybody stayed primarily because of the outdoor activities, the mountains, and the friendliness of the people.
Nice. Nice, good. How about this table here?
There was a theme of access to the outdoors, really close access brought some people, that's a attractive part. And then, yeah, that there's a sense of like friendliness, that you actually know people who live near, people who live close, defined as maybe bikeable. Depends how much you want to bike.
Oh, thank you. How about this table right here? Who's going to report out for us?
Well, we talked also about access to the outdoors, the four seasons. Volunteering came up. Of course, small community. I know that one of the things that drew us here was a small community that had access to a lot of basic services, ran by people who seemed to care and invested in the town. And that was a draw for us.
Over here?
Who wants?
I'll go. I think basically the sense of community, well, the outdoors drew people here, but the sense of community is really what kept us here.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Okay, our table had moved here for family, to support the family, moved out of the big city because there was too much violence, generational business, and new business owner, and stayed because started their own business after college.
Nice. How about right back here?
A lot of us moved here because of access to outdoor activities, but also because it was a nice little small town. And we've stayed because it is a nice little small town and there's no mosquitoes in town.
All right, everybody at our table, we're not from here, but we fell in love with Leavenworth when we got here because it's friendly and it's magical, and people seem to make things happen here, and people are not afraid of change. And we've all stayed here because it right away feels like home.
Lovely. Thank you.
At our table, two of us came to be with grandchildren. One came because she liked the small town and the closeness of the town. Three of them are from out of town. One from Chelan, two from Wenatchee, is that right? Oh, you live here, okay. Okay. And they have businesses here, family here. And one of the major major concern is future generations and what opportunities are for them. And of course, number one for that is affordable housing. Did I miss anything? Okay.
Alrighty. Our consensus has been, I think, basically around the table, business opportunity. Leavenworth offered that to many of us. Job availability. Even if we didn't own a business, we could get a job that would pay the rent. And then visited and just liked it. Thought that maybe we'd stay and spend some time. But along with that was the small town feel, what kept us here. Of course, the outdoors, safe environment to raise kids, for great seasons to enjoy, a welcoming community, and great medical care.
Back here?
Two of us at our table came here for the outdoors and a walkable lifestyle with good community. Two chose to retire here, and for one of them, good sidewalks and mobility and good services was really important. Another came for his career 40 years ago in the tourism industry and stayed and raised a family.
Nice, thank you. Over here.
We came for a variety of reasons, including jobs, family, the outdoor recreation environment, and some people had a history of coming here growing up. And people stayed because of the outdoor recreation, the sense of community, the schools, and the ability to know the people that are in your community when you're out and about.
Nice, thank you. Over there.
We had strong themes of family, many generations of family, starting and owning businesses, outdoors, community, yeah. The feel, I would say that everybody at my table really likes living here, which is pretty cool. A lot of excitement for it. Didn't want to leave.
Nice. Kelly had one more thing at this table.
We all agreed that we have a lot of choices, even though it's a small community. We have a lot of choices for entertainment, for music, restaurants. There's a lot here for the size of this town.
Good. Do you miss anybody? Thank you, buddy. I have a little bit of a harder question next. This question is, would you please at your table talk about the pros and cons of living in a tourism community? Make 2 lists. What are the great things about living in a tourism community, and what are the drawbacks of living in a tourism community? All right, I think we're going to go ahead and report out. Make sure you nominate your reporter outer person or two. Choose your public speaker. We are going to ask you, and right after this is done reporting out, I promise everyone's going to get a break for some snacks. But first thing we're going to do, listen up. Shh. I'm going to ask you to just stick with the pros first. We're going to go around and listen to all the wonderful parts of being part of a tourism community. So let's go ahead. Go ahead, right here.
Okie doke. So pros are some of the amenities. So lots of restaurants, trails access, or trails in general, medical, arts and culture. We also had in here business opportunities because of tourism. There's some unique business opportunities.
Sure.
We had housing value, both on the, you can see it on the pro and the con, but as an investment, Leavenworth is a good place to invest in a home. And then just generally people want to be here, which is a pro.
Right. Beautiful. Good. Over here. Pros.
Pros, we have increased revenue that help us pay for things like the pool and our parks. We have jobs, lots of art and culture like Leavenworth Summer Theater or music. Many sports such as golf, mountain biking, and ski trails. We have unique shops, and we get lots of friends and relatives that want to come and visit us.
Great. How about back here?
Thank you.
Back there, yeah.
Okay, so we said entertainment, music, arts, summer theater, jobs for summer jobs for kids that are amazing. Link bus activity is high here. We have our parks and playgrounds, pool and hospital are all better because we do have the money from tourism to make them bigger and better than a normal small town our size. And then the unique business opportunities too.
I think we had a lot of the comments already said, but I think the two that are additive are the tourism does bring new diversity, which we don't always have here. And then I can't remember if somebody already said that everyone wants to visit us here. So
Yes.
that's pretty cool.
Would you go ahead and say the ones that were already said?
Sure. We also said more restaurants, shops, infrastructure than a population of this size would normally have. Development of recreational activities, we benefit from it, and the jobs in tourism.
Thank you very much. Back here.
All right. We have sharing the beauty between the community that lives here and the visitors, diversity of activities, jobs. Restaurants are great, and a slight con in there is but few local spots. Small town community, lots of things to do, festivals, music, Snowy Owl Theater, ski hill, walkable living, tourism that brings money to town, Cascade Medical Center, lots of flourishing nonprofits like the Disabled Adults Homes, Tiara Learning Center, WRI, ICCA, Mountain Meadows, Mend, and a farmer's market that is a community meeting place.
Lovely. Thank you. Over there? Yep.
It'll be a little bit of a rehash of some
That's
of the
okay.
ideas.
That's
These
okay.
are awesome. But we like the walkability, the streetscape that is developing downtown that makes it easier for people to get around, the closing of Front Street that makes it more of a plaza. These are things that have been due to tourism. The big offerings, the arts, the sports that continue in our schools, the music that continues in our schools. I'm going to jump to the success of the nonprofits. The sheer number of successful nonprofits in this town is mind-boggling. It is providing music. It is providing art in our schools. And the summer theater and Art in the Park, they're all integral parts of it, the farmers market. We couldn't do those without the tourism dollars and the people who come to the town to visit. The new playground is awesome. Everybody's loving that. And one thing that was mentioned is, in a relative sense, how quiet the town can be. The comment was no jets flying over, not a lot of sirens, not a lot of, bad things happening in town. And the wildlife that is plentiful, whether we like the turkeys or not. So
Nice. Great. Over here.
All right, we had a lot of repeats. So culture, arts, entertainment, restaurants, a lot of fundraising opportunities for nonprofits in this town and for high schools and things like that from out of town visitors. Stable business environment, relatively so, for starting a business. There's a lot of events and festivals on top of the regular culture, arts, and entertainment that we already have. Tourism brings a revenue base from outside of this town. And it's fun. And as many people said, people want to visit us. They want to visit our families, and it's exciting to be able to host them in our beautiful town. And we added also that the flowers are beautiful and probably
nice.
wouldn't be
Nice.
here.
Great.
for tourism.
Over here.
We had commerce, dining, which is up there, multiple revenue streams, medical institutions. We're economically resilient, diverse interactions, and then interlocal and intersectional organization cooperation.
Nice. Have you gone yet? You already did. Okay. Back over here.
Howdy, good list so far. We have many of the same, just going over those. Provides a ready fundraising base for local volunteer groups and school groups. A variety of businesses and restaurants, hitting above our weight there. Enables our local hospital and brings diversity into our community.
Over here.
We're covering a lot of the same ground, but great restaurants, secure tax base, business opportunities, nonprofit support, proximity to mountains and water, ski hill, golf course, cross country, the train station. it's a great place for kids to be raised, and also kids can get really pretty good jobs. Kids can get good jobs, like their first job. There's a lot of opportunity for that. So I think that covers us.
Was that everybody for that one? Okay, let's change the channel here. Let's start over here on the cons.
Okay, we have a few more on this one. Hard to get local services, i.e. underwear. Where do you buy underwear?
Wait, say it again. Underwear?
Where do you buy underwear in
Oh,
town?
where do you buy underwear? Okay, that's, yes. First thing I thought of.
Yeah, that's what we did. Yeah, just the general busyness of the town on weekends and all summer and December and January. Anyway, parking issues, high demand on our natural resources, increased housing costs, empty houses, lack of long-term rental housing, decreased support for funding levies, i.e. school district levies, increased trash in the community, restrictions on the use of lodging tax, and we're not necessarily creating a better place to live through tourism.
Okay, and my bad, we missed a table up here, so let's do one more on Kara. We're going to go back to pros real quick.
Okay, so we had all the same things that were said, but taxed income, consistent income, restaurants, jobs, diversity. There was a theme around just sort of creating joy for people, sharing local beauty, people having good experiences, fun vacations, local discounts, which we contemplated whether those were increasing or decreasing. Places like Ski Hill that often are supported through taxes and tourism, and festivals.
Festivals, got that. Good. All right, that's a beautiful list. All of that. I'll stay with this table here, and let's go ahead and add to the cons list.
Okay, traffic, light and noise pollution, increasing amounts of litter and garbage to be managed. The sense of the not my town mentality that perhaps tourists might have. Nature crowds. A lot of people in places we love to visit that might be, our secret spots or whatnot. Increased cost of living, parking, decreased bandwidth, overconsumption, waste. Festivals made this list too. Increasing crime, theft, and then the idea that local voices can get overshadowed by tourism, and then non-resident housing.
Okay, thank you very much. Again, can we just acknowledge what Kara's doing back there? Do you see how fast this is going up here on the screen? I can't even imagine. That's amazing. All right, over here.
Let's see, parking and traffic, development pressure on landscapes. So we don't like the fact that development is creeping up the hills. Locals can't always enjoy the town or even life during busy times. Safety issues, so can ambulances get through when there's a huge line of cars down the Chumstick? Fire safety and sort of people in town that may not understand the principles of fire safety. And then sort of the concept that we've become more defensive of our space that we maybe wouldn't be if we were just a town of 2,000 people. And then the noise, the overcrowding, and the rising cost of housing, which I think someone else said could probably be a pro as well, but we have it on the con list here. So.
Thank you. Good. Go ahead.
Okay, so we pretty much had everything that she just mentioned. But, so I won't mention those again, but the downtown core is a tourist servicing downtown, so that was maybe a unique one. It's not a resident servicing downtown, so some of those underwear shops aren't quite popping up.
This group's really into underwear tonight.
I know. And along with that, resort pricing. So the effective. And then pricing of things. So cost of even groceries at Safeway, cost of things in general in Leavenworth versus other small towns. Otherwise, everything that was just mentioned at the last two tables.
Thank you. Okay, back over here.
Us?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So parking, traffic, safe crossing across US 2 and some other busy highways. Limited return on the lodging tax to the community and the infrastructure that is impacted by tourism, like our cell towers, river poop, garbage, we need a pedestrian tunnel, sewer, and traffic again. And then impact on the environment, so light pollution, noise pollution, which really limits our ability to sort of enjoy the natural beauty that brought a lot of us here. And then, impact of garbage and the interaction between that and our lovely wildlife that sometimes partakes in it.
Nice, thank you. Over here.
So I do have a pro because we didn't get to do the pros, but we wanted
Oh,
to
we missed you on the
just-
pros as well?
We just wanted to highlight the fact that the tax income does give this small community a lot more benefit than other rural communities get. So
Absolutely.
as far as infrastructure and everything, so that there's a lot of benefits that we get that.
Because of the taxes. Yeah. Did you get that, Kara?
So
Thank you.
our cons, let me know when you're
Can
ready.
you get the microphone a little closer to your mouth? There you go.
The cons would be parking access. The short-term rentals reduce long-term housing. Congested streets, the space for expansion is limited for housing and business because we're in a little valley. Tourism is the main moneymaker, basically. So if tourism was to go away, there's no backup plan. The local access to downtown is severely limited, and which affects businesses. And handicap parking and access to businesses is really lacking too. And I know they're putting in a few more spaces, but that's a big complaint that I've noticed. And I had a friend who was in a wheelchair who would not be able to get into a lot of the spaces because of access. And I think that's a big one too.
Okay, thank you. If we miss a table again tonight, make sure you scream at me. We won't let that happen again. Back here.
Okay, our list included traffic. Obviously, it's a significant concern, but the primary areas of concern were during the festivals and lighting festivals. Emergency staff not being able to respond, either fire or police. A lot of people in town. Garbage and litter is another concern that we had brought up. Parking obviously is an ongoing issue and has been. The environmental impacts are huge. The people that are coming are loving our natural resources to death. It's unaffordable for a lot of folks to live here, and it's hard for folks that support our economic driver here called tourism can't afford to live here. So that creates some pretty significant issues for us. There's a need for more community-oriented stores for basic needs. I really don't know where the underwear thing is coming from, but it came up here as well. It's like, seriously? But there's a severe underwear shortage in town. I had no clue. The other issues that we had discussed were light pollution and noise from downtown, and that noise travels quite a distance up the valleys here, so people that are not involved in town are, having to deal with that. Density is another concern that we brought up. Property taxes that support downtown beautification instead of tourism putting the dollars back into the community was another issue that we had discussed as well.
Thank you very much. Over there.
This will be a lot of repeats, but we thought fire danger that tourists and outsiders don't understand, overusage of environment, reduced water for everyone, traffic, lack of parking, empty shelves because of the tourists. Beer was mentioned at Safeway. And we'll add socks and underwear. Lack of housing and monthly rentals, light pollution, wildlife habitat encroachment, worry and concern about who is around on the weekends, fear about crime, I think is implied. Emergency service delays, growing pains, empty houses, and increased trash.
All right, thank you. Back here.
Lack of parking and cost of parking, increased demand on infrastructure, traffic, real estate costs, and under-resourced trailheads and trails.
Cool, thank you. Back there.
Cons would be traffic congestion, no big surprise to anybody already. Parking and the lack of commitment to providing parking for our guests. Overuse of resources, pressure on our wilderness, higher cost of goods, higher cost of living if we purchase locally. And the fact that city, county, and local governments are lagging behind in upgrading facilities, helping us upgrade the infrastructure to accommodate the tourism that we are trying to support for our livelihood.
Great, thank you. Is that everybody? Do we just right here, this table? Good.
Our cons are traffic, parking, crowded, like the river and the restaurants, high prices, like the restaurants, shops are geared toward tourists, and trails are overcrowded, like Kolchak Lake and the Enchantments.
Right, okay, good. Over here.
BJ is going to read because it's his handwriting, but I just want to correct the record on the underwear. You can buy underwear in Leavenworth. They just say Leavenworth, Washington on them.
And it's Bavarian, right? It's Bavarian underwear. Yes, okay.
Our cons were pre-2022 Drunk Fest. I think we were talking about Oktoberfest. Traffic congestion, STRs, air quality, and then segmented community institutions.
Okay, great. Did we miss anybody? Did you guys go? You went? Okay. Pretty good? Okay. All right. Thank you very much. That was great. And it was great to see symmetrical, so many things on both sides. I think that was really fair and thoughtful. So we're going to take 10 minutes, and I'm going to ask you to get a snack and enjoy chatting and hanging out for about 10 minutes. And if you wouldn't mind, it would be really cool if you could try to sit mixed up at the next table with some other folks. If you could scatter around a little bit and try to be with a different group. We are going to be getting into some solutions. We need your help on solutions. 10 minutes, 10-minute break. All right, folks. Thank you for coming back. Can I get your attention? We're going to, each of these sessions, we're going to have a little bit of information for you. Maggie last week shared quite a bit of helpful information around the plan. Selby, stand up Selby, the city administrator is going to share with us a little bit about the economic impact of tourism on our city.
Thanks, Mike. Good evening, everybody. My name is Selby, and I moved here from the great state of Massachusetts to be Leavenworth City Administrator 2 years ago. As the mayor stated earlier today and at the last visiting session, Leavenworth has had its ups and downs throughout the last century, and the decision to save the miracle town of Leavenworth through Project Life and the Bavarian theme has resulted in the Leavenworth that we have today, a highly attractive destination that welcomes an estimated 3 million visitors every year. And whether we like it or not, the city of Leavenworth, the city budget, is dependent on this tourism economy. Now, I don't intend this lecture to be a municipal finance one-on-one, but I do want to explain what I mean by being dependent on tourism. And I think a lot of you already understand this from some of the remarks that we heard earlier about the pros and cons. The city's budget, like your household budget, is based on ins and outs, revenues and expenditures. But unlike your paycheck, which you can spend any way you see fit, if your spouse agrees, the city's revenues have much tighter restrictions on how they can be used. The city operates with 3 different major revenue types or fund types: the general fund, the street fund, and enterprise funds. I'll first touch on enterprise funds, which are like little micro businesses within the city. We've got water, sewer, stormwater, and garbage, and parking enterprise funds. And these funds operate based on user fees rather than on taxes. And sometimes, as was the case with the general fund during COVID-19, the general fund can be used to supplement an enterprise fund that is in financial distress. But the money cannot flow the other way. So once funds are in a designated enterprise fund, they can go nowhere else but that enterprise fund. So water rates pay for us for the water treatment plant and for the distribution, just like parking pays for our Glacier parking lot that's under construction right now next to Argonaut. That's a $5 million project that's not costing any taxpayers any dollars. That's being entirely funded by our parking enterprise fund. But our enterprise funds can't be used to, say, patch a pothole in front of your house or to build a playground. They must be tied to the fund and the fund's purpose. So that's enterprise funds. Other major revenues that the city relies on include property tax, utility tax, sales tax, and lodging tax. Lodging tax being our most restrictive, but I'll get to that in the end. Now, contrary to what a lot of people think, property taxes pay for just a fraction of our overall operations. Per Washington state law, property taxes can only be raised by 1% a year. So in 2024, the city council adopted our ad valorem tax increase of 1%, which had amounted to an increase of about $7,000. So who pays property taxes to the city? Just the people in city limits. So if you live in the UGA or if you live in the county, then you're paying taxes to the county. You're not paying taxes to the city. When a property owner in the city limits pays a property tax bill, about 11% goes to the city. So anybody can go to the Chelan County Assessor's office, pull up your property, and pull up where your property tax. This is my house. I have an assessed value, appraised value of $518, and I'm generating $416 to the city's coffers on an annual basis. So that's about 11%. The remaining property taxes you can see here, about 56% goes to the schools, 3.6% to the library, 8% to the hospital, just under 8% to the fire district. The county gets almost as much as the city at 9.2%, and 4% goes to other. That's the port, that's veteran services, that's mental health services, and it's also the Upper Valley PRSA. So when you guys, and thank you for doing so, voted to increase your levy to the PRSA, it's less than 1% of your overall tax bill that is going up. Again, the city only receives property taxes from those properties within the city limits, which is less than 1.5 square miles. And because of our tourist economy, we have a pretty healthy split between residential and commercial. We have, in this town, roughly 61%, 61.5% of the properties are residential properties, and the rest, 38.5%, are commercial. Typically, you'll see a 90-10 or an 80-20 split. And the commercial includes our shops, restaurants, stores, and it does include multifamily housing units. So how much does that bring us in? Every year, or this year, we will anticipate $726,929 in property tax revenue coming into the city coffers. Just to let you know, or just to put that into perspective of what some of our expenses are, just our liability insurance for the city exceeds our property tax take. Our public safety services, so this includes our sheriffs, emergency management, our prosecution and jail services, that's just over $850,000. And then our parks operation budget is almost $925,000 for 2024. So overall, property tax revenues fund just 13% of the city's annual operating budget. Now, thankfully, this is not our only revenue source. We also tax your utilities. So when you get a bill from the city, water, stormwater, sewer, if you get your cable bill, get your electrical bill from the PUD, you'll see a line item on there that is taxed to the city. And that generates us an additional $750,000 in tax revenue. That exceeds our property tax take. So the bulk of the revenue that comes to the city is from sales tax. And that's why I say that we are so dependent on this city's tourism economy. The sales tax rate in Leavenworth is 8.6%. So the state gets 6.5 of that. The county gets a slice. The Link gets a slice. There's someone else in there that gets a slice, and I forgot who they were. But we get 1.15% of the 8.6% sales tax. So what that means is for every $100 spent within city limits, the city receives $1.15. And the way we direct this is 10 cents of that goes to public safety, 47 cents goes in the general fund, and we dedicate 58 cents to our street fund. Of course, the city sales tax revenue is not entirely driven by tourists. Locals are also spending money in the city at the hardware store, the gas station, eating and drinking in our lovely Bavarian downtown. But I hate to say it, if you can't find underwear in town, I would rather you buy it on Amazon and have it shipped to your address in the city limits than to go to Wenatchee to buy your underwear. Because if you shop online and it's delivered to an address in the city limits, the city gets that $1.15 for every $100 you spend. So that overall, in 2023, the city received $2.75 million in sales tax revenue. So now let's take a minute to talk about the largest source of revenue for the city, which is our hotel motel tax, also known as lodging tax. The city's lodging tax rate is 5%. And this we're on track to generate about $4.5 million this year in lodging taxes. And that's more than all the other taxes the city receives combined. However, according to state law, these funds can only be used for the promotion of tourism or the construction and operation of tourism-related facilities. So the Front Street restroom project that's under construction, that's a $2 million project. That is being paid for 100% by lodging tax. This fest hall that we're in, this is a tourism facility. And lodging tax is being used to pay off the bond that voters approved to buy and to renovate this old fruit warehouse into this lovely tourist facility that you see. And we're fortunate that we can use this for events like this or community engagement nights. But if it weren't for Oktoberfest taking place here and the Village of Lights taking place here, then this would not be considered a tourism facility and we wouldn't have been able to utilize lodging taxes to pay for it. So we are as creative as we can be with the use of our lodging taxes. For instance, we collected zip code data a few years ago. We determined that about 25% of the users pre-COVID using the pool were from outside 50 miles from the city. So we justified the use of 25% of the pool operating budget coming from lodging taxes, and that has not yet been questioned by our auditor. So we can use that, but what we can't do is, say, use lodging taxes to build a community center that has an occasional attraction that tourists might go to, like a movie. So how does the city spend its lodging taxes? Well, about 20% goes to the Chamber of Commerce. About 15% goes to the Leavenworth area promotions. They're out there advertising and drawing people into town. And we're very creative with how we use our lodging taxes by using this very restrictive fund on all the improvements for our downtown Bavarian core, because we consider that a tourist facility. So the big belly trash cans that were just rolled out, those solar compacting trash cans, those were funded with lodging tax. We charge as much of our public works activity to lodging tax as we can, including these trash cans, but also personnel costs, operational costs for parks, the hanging flower baskets, that's all paid for lodging tax. The porta-johns, right now because the Front Street restrooms are closed, we've opened up the fest hall and we're paying Pacific Security to be here to manage it while we're doing it. That's all paid for by lodging taxes. And of course, all of our festivals, security and support comes from lodging tax. So this chart shows the growth, and we're talking about tourism tonight, and this is how our tax revenue has grown since 2015. So that's motel, hotels tax there. Retail sales tax is tracking just below it. This is parking. Now, it's not a tax, it's a revenue, but we threw in here just to show our visitation. And in 2021 was when we started turned on the on-street meters, and you can see how that has impacted our parking revenue. So again, living and working in a business tourist community, as wonderful and desirable as it is, has its challenges. We know, we get it, we all live here. But that's why I wanted to share with you how important our tourism economy is to the city's budget. And also wanted to stress that we don't have the freedom and flexibility to spend our tourism dollars in every way that we would like to. So as a tourist town, we're dependent on the money our visitors spend in the city to provide the services that businesses and residents depend on, like our parks, our streets, and special places like the Fest Hall.
That was really good. Wow, that was great. That was super. I learned a lot. That was really great. All right. Let me remind you that we have the drop boxes for questions. We don't have time for questions and answers tonight, but anything you want to ask and have answered, please use the drop boxes up here in the lobby or back there at the table. We've got 2 more questions for you tonight, and one of them is a bit theoretical. It's a what question, and then we're going to move to a more practical how question. I'm going to give you both questions right now, just so you don't mix them up. But would you just stick with the first question? The first question is a little theoretical, but it really is this. What, in your opinion, does a sustainable tourism model mean to you? I'm going to give you a kind of a follow-up with that. What would a non-sustainable tourism model look like to you? So this is a little more theoretical. I'm going to tell you what the question is going to be later, just so you don't right now start moving into it, because the last question we're going to ask is, how do we get there? We're going to ask you for some advice. We're going to ask you what the city should do, what the businesses should do, what individuals should do, what the chamber should do. So we're going to save that one for a bit. But for right now, I just want you to answer this, and I'll read it to you again. What does a sustainable tourism model mean to you, and what would a non-sustainable tourism model look like to you? All right, go for it. Call me over if you want that repeated. Yes. Yeah, what does a sustainable tourism model mean to you? Yeah, that's kind of where I meant to be. What would a non-sustainable model look like? So it's kind of both. Sustainable and a non-sustainable model. What does that look like? What does it mean to you? Then we'll get to the how before we're done tonight. So folks, you don't need to be done, but I want to interrupt you for just a moment. So go ahead and just stop for a moment. I'm going to let you continue. The reason I'm stopping you is because you are doing very good work. I just went around and eavesdropped a little bit. I knew this was going to happen, and you can't help it. You're kind of getting into the next thing, so I'm just going to give you the next thing. So you can work on both of these together. So let me give you the next thing. You're already solving problems, I can tell, so let's just solve them. This is going to be the meat of our work tonight. We're going to be asking you to spend some time on this. We're going to give you lots of time on this. We're going to have you report out and really dig in on this. So here's the last question. You can go ahead and finish the one you're on if you'd like. Please kind of wrap that up. But then here's where we're going to really spend our time tonight. How do we create a tourism model that sustains a healthy community? So I'm going to give you a little more detail, but let me just repeat that. How do we create a tourism model that sustains a healthy community? So what should the city do? What should individuals do? What should businesses do? What should the chamber do? Okay, so one more time. How do we create a tourism model that sustains a healthy community? In your perfect world, what would all those entities be doing to make that happen? All right, go for it. Okay, let me give you a word of instruction here before we hear from you. This is really important. We appreciate your efforts and your energy on this. Folks, when we come to your table, we'd like you to just share anything and everything you would like us to hear. So you can start, if you'd like, with the theoretical. What does a sustainable tourist city look like and not look like? You can start there if you'd like. You can jump into the advice that you have for us, the how-tos and the what you would like to see these folks doing. This really is your time. This is your platform. You can have more than one person share. In fact, if your presenter doesn't get all the points, feel free to have someone jump in. We'll take a couple minutes at your table so that you really get everything out there for us. Is everybody ready? Okay, let's start right back here. Okay, listen up, everybody. And please talk nice and loud so we can get everything.
Are we starting on the?
You can basically tell us everything you want to tell us. You can start with
Okay.
the sustainability question.
All right. So under the topic of sustainability, balance was kind of our big theme. Balancing the economic drivers. Oh, I don't know if I can read all your notes. Balance of the economic driver versus community, supporting development for residents and locals, preserving safety. Kids should be able to roam in town, have emergency services, support needs of the tourists at the compromising the community, have infrastructure, have the upgrades and benefits that tourists bring. So kind of this general idea of balance, housing tourists without displacing local community. And then getting to some of the specifics of how do we do that. So we talked a lot about second homes. So maybe you have a second home tax, balancing short-term rentals with primary residence, some idea of supporting occupancy. So have occupancy regulations that houses always need to have someone living in them. Vacation rentals are important for tourism, but we want a balance to make sure we have workforce housing. And maybe that does look like it's in Wenatchee or Kashmir or elsewhere. But as soon as we start getting our housing outside of Leavenworth, expand transportation. So make sure we do have free buses, access to all of the different housing options, and the ability to move around easily and, economically. So yeah, that's like more shuttles throughout town. We talked about having like parking options on either side of town, and that might need to be like a parking garage to accommodate everyone, and then really providing transport to get everyone around to the places they want to go, which also could include going out to the trailheads, and especially the really busy trailheads like Stewart, Kolchak Lake. Parking garages would also, free up from the parking for locals. Making it easier for people to come and park closer to town when locals are coming in. Mentioned a walkway or underpass or overpass for crossing too, so that traffic could flow more freely there. Anyone else from our table?
That's great.
Okay.
Really good. Anyone else from that table? Okay. Thank you. Wonderful. All right.
I think along with balance, we talked about it in a slightly different way of soft tourism. So this idea that we're not just thinking about growth and expanding, we're thinking about how we're sustaining what we have. So that kind of was a theme through everything. But we also mentioned parking garages, shuttles, like you said, to get around town, to move people around town. Along with that could be more bike paths, more bike parking. We also talked about spreading that tourism around town, so it's not just concentrated in the downtown in Kolchak, that there are other spaces tourists can be. what we were hearing earlier about our town and how everyone feels like it's a community. So how can we communicate that to tourists? And so having some sort of community motto or mission that we can have for people to understand and know who we are as a community. And that would lead to quality of experience over just quantity. We were talking about building more partnerships. So like with Stevens Pass, we can be a ski town, not just our own town here, but build that and spread that experience out further. We need more infrastructure improvements to sustain what we have, but we're going to be growing, and so we need to be investing in that. There's a lot of lights that we have, but there's also natural lighting, and so thinking about how we can have limits on some of that light pollution, some of that sound pollution, so we can enjoy all of that. And seasonal worker dorms, some sustainable housing for people in here in town. We also have empty beds sometimes, and how maybe we can, as a community, support that as well. And decibel meters. Decibel meters to monitor the sound.
Great, good work, beautiful. Okay, back here.
Okay, we cheated, so I plagiarized myself a little bit in our own sustainable management plan. But to how to make tourism sustainable, our answer is by balancing the needs of the industry and area residents, provide education to visitors, leverage our events to create revenue streams for our nonprofits and initiatives, and develop responsible infrastructure projects to maximize sustainability for the Leavenworth community. And we do that with 5 pillars, and that is funding it forward.
Wait, hold on. Just back up about.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. No, go. Back up about a sentence. Good.
Okay. The 5 ways that we do that are funding it forward, and that is the pillar of the trail ambassadors, the programs that we do for nonprofits. At any time that we spend lodging tax money or throw an event, there's always a fundraising mechanism within it, built in. Visitor flow management, changing the way that we have done events, curbing the negative aspects of events, of the Christmas lighting, taking that away, changing how Oktoberfest is run, not doing things on the weekends and filling the valleys, and using data to make sure that we're putting new events on weekends that there are not a million other things going on. The other way is communications and monitoring. We use a lot of data to make the decisions that we make on marketing. For instance, in the Seattle area, we don't really deliver come visit Leavenworth anymore. We deliver give a schnitzel messaging, which is if you come here, be a better steward of our trails and our river, and gives them tips on how to do that, and videos that we produce on how to be a better visitor when they come to Leavenworth. The other is destination development, and that is a new one for us as the chamber. And for this year, we created a scholarship program. We gave $50,000 to Upper Valley Men's Solid Foundations program, and we're designed a training. Just today in this room, we had a 3.5-hour customer service training for all chamber members. So developing our destination to be more resilient. And then climate and resiliency is our last one. And that takes on all the things, our recreation ambassador trailhead program, and making all of our events be zero waste. For instance, in Oktoberfest, having all of our cups be compostable means that we were able to divert 1 ton of methane gas from being in the Dryden landfill, but it was composted at Wind facility. So those are some of the things that we look at.
Wonderful. Wow, great. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Good work. Over here.
Okay, building on what Troy was speaking to over there. So when we were talking about what it looks like to have sustainable tourism in our community, we really were talking about like the awareness of visitor numbers and really speaking to that quality over quantity that I think we heard before. And so that education campaign being very important. So building on what the chamber's already doing there, making sure that we are telling people how they can be good stewards of our town and the resources here. And also like that, developing that shoulder season tourism, so it's not, overcrowding in certain times of the year and then dead. And I think that also builds into the sustainability of business models as well. We talked about traffic, alternate routes, alternate transportation to get people out of their cars coming into downtown and making that part of the experience. So I think in the past there was a Polar Express train. Can we bring something like that back the sky's the limit when you're talking about this stuff. There's also talks of horizontal gondolas. I know it's an idea. How do you get people into town without cars? Shuttles as well. And, we also said sustainable tourism looks like well-managed and maintained outdoor recreation resources. We know that's why a lot of people visit our town. And with some sort of dedicated operations and maintenance funding for those so that they remain maintained over time. And one way to look at that is like potentially a voluntary give back program that's hosted by local businesses. So every transaction that happens, you say, do you want to give $1 to trails? We don't have something like that right now. So that's something we should, potentially look at. As far as supporting local infrastructure, one of the other resources that we could explore is a public facilities district, which is sales tax based. So that's something that we could look at as a community, not property tax based. And then, let's see, taking care of what we have, focusing lodging tax on, operations and maintenance and less on marketing and promotion. And it sounds like the chamber is already doing a lot of that refocusing as it is. I think, other like parking structures, other people have mentioned parking garage and being conscious of potential for increased crime with a parking garage. So I'll leave it at that.
Wow, good job. This room is full of very smart people. All right, over here.
So in thinking about what sustainable tourism looks like, talked about conservation ethic, decreasing food waste, decreasing garbage, considering water usage. Kind of one thing mentioned was kind of like leveling out the amount of tourists, meaning more like that the month-to-month and day-to-day amounts are more spreading out also where they are, not just in the downtown core. I'd say we spent the most of our time talking about what does it mean to create buy-in for tourists in a way that maybe they act like this is their home or a place that they have more sense of like home or community within. So I think that comes through education. Give a Schnitzel is definitely part of that. But we talked about like, is there more information in like hotels or even Airbnbs about how they can participate in the sustainability of our own city? We also spent time talking about like, what does it look like to make a nudge? So in a sense, forcing people to participate, right? Like the city has wonderful garbage cans that was highlighted and mentioned that came from tourist tax. There aren't recycling bins. Right? You put a recycling bin next to the garbage can. It's a lot easier to recycle when it's conveniently located. You didn't tell them to recycle. You didn't say, remember to recycle, but you made it easy, right? In a sense, kind of creating incentivizations that lead to the actions that you want. So if we want to see maybe decrease food waste in certain spaces, we could talk about restaurants or in homes. Do we make it harder to fill their trash cans? Do we give them smaller ones? Do we make it more expensive? Do you make it easier to do the things that you really want? So that goes with some of the things that were mentioned, environmentally, getting to trailheads, making it so there's maybe less parking and they have to take Link. Some of those things then create the answers that you want. But in a sense, educating people in ways to how they could give back to our community. And then it was also talked about like, is there, as we think about this, is there a carrying capacity of our city? Are we reaching that? Has that been thought about, right? Is there a limit on the number of people who, we know how many beds, hotel rooms we have per night. That's a number Troy could probably tell us, right? But is there a carrying capacity to how many hotel rooms we should have or could have, right? Is there a limitation that we should be putting on future growth?
Good, wonderful.
Oh yeah, and the empty houses. That was mentioned earlier, kind of a increased tax on non-primary homes.
Great, thank you very much. All righty, back over here.
Over here. We had a lot of the same ideas, but housing for the workforce was our #1 sustainable tourism and happy community bullet. Beyond that, visitor flow management, transportation options that don't put pressure on parking, trailheads, shuttles, bike trails, collaboration with Stevens. We talked about safe access being super important, crossing US Highway 2, maybe at Ski Hill Road. Could we have a solution there that allowed folks with kids and get across the road? Then we started talking about an identity of Leavenworth? How do we get the community and the business community and the whole community to identify as Leavenworth and own the strengths and challenges that come with living in a tourist town? We talked about incentivizing, facilitating, and showcasing sustainable features of our town and business. We also talked about connections between the businesses and the community would be a good way to own that community identity. We spoke specifically about high school and business community connections and how great those are when the businesses go back and forth and the students go back and forth.
Great, thank you very much. Good stuff. Right over here.
We also talked about a little bit about the identity with a cohesive message from to the businesses and residents from the city, and then keeping our promises, our marketing promises to our tourists, create open conversations with all entities, and lean into our positive aspects of our area, tourism, outdoors, business offerings. The big issue here that we deal with mostly is affordable housing. So public-private partnerships from landowners and the government, and then some government forethought on property buying for our housing market. I don't know. Yeah, we talked about waste loop and compostables. Public and residents coexist with the businesses. So how does that work? Because businesses are out to make sure that they can get an income, but we know that we depend on our locals for our employees and for our kids and all those types of things, our nonprofits. I think that's about it. We talked about the ambassador program and mitigating traffic. Anything else? Okay.
Great, awesome, good work. Back there.
We had basically a recommitment to the Bavarian theme, which I like. It's not slip away from that, but in our tourist area, a recommitment to it. Commitment to our lands and our recreational areas, so tourists can keep on wanting to come and use them. And then I talked about diversifying our economy. We have an incredible tourist economy, and we see the rate that it's growing, but knowing that businesses, the small businesses that are keeping that going, they know that they can't grow at that rate consistently, and so relieve the pressure off of them so they can grow and manage their businesses and find new sales tax revenues, which means entrepreneurship and stuff outside of downtown where it's supporting the community. And so that would be freelance, digital freelance, those type of things that generate income and generate sales that we would get tax revenue.
Nice, great, really good. Over here.
We, for sustainable, we felt that that would make living in the community better and also visiting the community better for both. Unsustainable would make it a lesser experience for visitors and residents. We'd like to maybe attract a certain visitor or attract a type of activity that would bring a certain visitor that would show a little more respect for what Leavenworth is. As far as getting there, there's possible quotas on trails and the river, attracting people that would respect what we have and what they have too, and doing that through planning, regulation, and possible enforcement on trails and rivers. We'd like to support more regional activities. So you could say, well, you can tube this part of the Wenatchee River in Leavenworth, but you could also go through Peshastin or Dryden or Kashmir. And also transportation. in the Upper Valley for people who maybe can't afford to live right here but work here, so that it would be easy to come and go. And a lot of things everybody else said too. So
Great. Good stuff. Back here. Oh,
All right. We didn't write down as much stuff as the rest of you, but and we were maybe a bit more abstract and not so detailed. We're outside of the box. So I think one of the big things that we talked about was acknowledging, well, I guess I would just say Selby's presentation was very educational.
Yeah,
I don't
wasn't
know if
that-
I must be the only one who felt that.
No, it's great.
But just as residents, that kind of information is really helpful to see where it's coming from. So for us, you know, we're sitting there talking about like, wow, that plays into when the city makes their budget, they're relying on those numbers coming in. And so the sustainable growth has to do with not growing too fast and but also not seeing a decline too fast. So the consistency, I think, with the city, I assume they want to see stability in how they can predict the next year is going to go. So maybe that's a little too numbers based, but and then, you know, it actually has been mentioned a lot of really good ideas that are in our region and maybe are not necessarily in the city limits. And so I think since we're talking about the city of Leavenworth, for us, it was acknowledging what can the city do and what is beyond the city's control. And maybe the rivers thing's an interesting one because most of a lot of the river access is not within the city limits. And so more collaboration with the county, and that's already going on with the local Chamber of Commerce working with Visit Chelan County and their kind of chamber that they're acting under with the county to try to drive some of that tourism outside of the core. So I think it's acknowledging that Leavenworth is not the only beautiful part of this area. It's how can we spread people out, not just by time of year, but by where they're physically going. Because really, most of the assets that we all love about Leavenworth are not actually in the city limits. All right, I don't want to speak for everybody, but the things I love about being here are not just the downtown core. And then the education piece, I think, with the visitors, that's been touched on a lot, is continuing to remind them about things like fire safety in the summertime and how to respect our assets in the community and try to make them feel like a local in certain ways, that they respect the parks, our really nice new park. And let's see.
We talked a little bit about some micro adjustments that can do probably some immediate things. And one is, can a lodging association get together and say, hey, let's change checkout. Let's expand it an hour or two so that you keep those cars off the street so they're not jammed up. Talking with the state about readjusting the lights starting from Wenatchee all the way through here. You take those down the road where there's 4 lanes and you close them for an extra minute and you open these up here, east and west, an extra minute and get the cars flowing. You stop them down there and you flow them through here so that you don't have the congestion. They're going to come through here anyways. They're coming through here. You know, the problem is we got a 4-lane highway at 65 miles an hour to a 2-lane road at 30 miles an hour. So micro adjustments like that, I think could do some immediate things. The other thing we have to keep in mind is for the city to get $2.7 million in sales tax, you have to generate almost $330 million in revenue to get that money. And so that money pays for a lot of things. It pays for mortgages, it pays for car payments, it pays for insurance. So how do you maintain that without going backwards with the amount of people coming in? So that's one of the hurdles I think that you're going to have to look at, because you don't want to take that away. There's a lot of people dependent on that money, not just the tax revenue that the city gets, but everybody's livelihood. So you have to look at the revenue side and how do you spread it out? How do you maintain it? How do you grow it? How do you grow jobs? Because if you don't have jobs, you gotta grow jobs to maintain an economy. So
Good. Was that everybody? One more over here.
We just real quick, we touched on this a little bit. Stefan did, and somebody else just mentioned it. But one of the things that I was talking about with our group was treating our Upper Valley area as a corridor instead of looking just at Leavenworth. And I think it's really important, if we want to stay a sustainable tourist spot, to spread out what's happening here between Leavenworth, Peshastin, Dryden, Kashmir. We have got all kinds of amenities. We've got ag tourism. There could be arts tourism. We've got opportunities for more housing from here to there, free transportation if housing starts happening a little bit further away. I mean, the Upper Valley Discovery District or Agriculture and Arts Zone, call it whatever you want, but there just are lots of opportunities for things to happen that don't all have to happen right inside of Leavenworth, and there'd be so much spillover benefit for every one of those communities, including our own, that's how I see more sustainability.
Nice. Wow. Thank you. Oh, okay, right here.
Yep. We haven't gone yet. I think pretty much everything that we talked about has already been said. But definitely a theme of, balancing the needs of the tourists with the community. Some of the things that it sounds like the chamber is already doing with trying to balance things out. We did give some kudos to the chamber for some of the things that they've done, like Oktoberfest management, Christmas lighting, the recreation ambassadors. Those have been great changes in the community. We talked a lot about sort of sustainability around, environmental sustainability. So recycling, composting, garbage, the Bearwise cans that I think the city has started but really need to continue, and sort of some of the things that Maggie's table was talking about with, encouraging the carrots and the sticks. Both are good. Refillable water stations. We have shuttles circled and exclamation pointed, along with probably some sort of multi-pronged approach for parking where, maybe there's a garage or a shuttle system from farther away. And then also helping to respect the residential parking. So maybe that's timed parking, but, if folks in town don't have tourist parking outside their houses, they are probably going to be friendlier to the tourists too, and that's a first impression for our tourists, so that's kind of a sustainable thing. We talked about the crosswalks too, and the sort of the pathways through town. I like that idea of slowing people down valley a little bit. Using tourist dollars to fund residential street improvements, trails, bike paths, walking paths. We talked about housing a little bit. There's been lots of conversation about taxing vacant properties. And I think the combination of policy, some of the things that the city is going to be mandated to do by the state, some of the pushes for more regulation on vacant homes, as well as the funding sources, like the chamber supporting workforce housing in Leavenworth through Upper Valley Men's campaign, and then also just working on funding sources to specifically support the local workforce. That combination stretches the public dollars as far as they can go, and also, focuses on housing the folks that we want. One of the comments that we had on the over-tourism piece is the drop-in numbers at the school district. So trying to make sure that we, maintain enrollment, and a lot of that is families not being able to afford to live here who also may have somebody in the family working locally. So it's a kind of symbiotic relationship there. And then we threw on some like long-term dream ideas. So aquatic center, we'll throw it out. Pedestrian tunnels, overpasses, highway reroutes, a tunnel for the highway. I'm just gonna like throw it out there, and
Dream, baby, dream.
I'm not sure that there's a lot of feasibility and no bad ideas, right? I think that's it. Is that it? Okay.
Underwear stores, underwear manufacturing.
No underwear. No underwear.
Okay.
Oh yeah, you can get
All right.
underwear at Doss Thrift
Okay. All
House.
right. Okay. Real quick.
okay, maybe too abstract or wooey, but I'm just going to say it because she said tunnels. So I think it'd be cool to think about Leavenworth as a living like organism, as we all are human beings and we all are growing and changing. The town is a living, breathing thing, less of a commodity and a abstract thing you just come and buy. It's a living, breathing thing. And similar to like, again, it might be too abstract, but I bet almost a lot of you garden and like to take care of plants. I just imagine you understand nature because you live here. I think the town is a very natural thing. So think about it. What's the soil of Leavenworth? What are the nutrients? What's the fruit that you're going to get from it? I'm not giving you a solution, just an idea. And ways to think about like guilds and zones. I really like the idea of like all of the stuff around us is so amazing and we're so hyper fixated on that riverfront park, and tourists don't even know Kashmir's rad. Wenatchee's cool. It's grown a lot. Monitor, people don't go there. There's a lot beyond this zone. You could say Leavenworth is zone 1, and outside of that, if anyone's familiar with permaculture at all the guilds support each other, and it's a living, breathing entity. And what do you want to support? The soil, the nutrients, the fruit, whatever it is, we all play a role. I don't have a solution. Just think about Leavenworth maybe as a heartbeat instead of a thing. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. That's a beautiful way to end this. Thank you very much. So first of all, I want you to give yourself a round of applause for the wisdom and creativity and the passion tonight. So give yourselves a round of applause. And would you applaud the listeners tonight because they are doing this, they want to hear from you and they put great effort into making this happen. So let's applaud these guys, these folks. And I'm going to turn it over to Carl to close us tonight. Thank you, everybody.
Again, just to say thank you for coming out and giving this great amount of time for us. And it's wonderful to have my only duty be to listen and write and write and write and write. I write not because Kara does all the writing, but it helps me to focus and hear and respond in the moment, to get that down and to be thinking in that moment. So thank you. And like I said, this is the second of 3 of these type of events. Then we're going to gather again in October, give you tons of feedback from what we've collected and gathered and done. But that is, again, just the beginning. So stay engaged. Keep these thoughts coming. Keep engaging with us through this whole process, because we'll get a much better result, a much better vision of where we're headed if you all stay engaged. So thank you and have a great night. Yeah. Oh, we love esoteric, don't we? No. Who wants to give the pitch? It's going to be a different format. I know that. We're going to have opportunities to engage around themes, and you'll get to travel. That's as much as I know. Kara, do you have? Okay. Come on, Kara, come and share more of what it is. It'll be fun.
Yes, thank you, everybody. Actually, so secret, next week is actually going to be my favorite week. I'm really excited about it. So we're going to shake things up. So we are going to be focusing on lots of different topics that relate to accountable stewardship. So there's going to be sections where you can talk to someone about Firewise and Bearwise, and we're going to have these anchors that are going to actually engage with you and be experts in their field. And you can give them their feedback, your thoughts, your concerns, your solutions, and you're going to get to hear from them. And then they're going to report out. And we're also going to be focusing on, we're going to go a little theme, earth, wind, water, and fire. So we're going to go a little bit old school. And that's kind of what we're focusing on. It's going to be really great. Like I said, we're shaking things up, and it's going to be timed. So we're going to have lots more stations than you're going to be able to hit. So it's going to be really fun. It's going to be like a speed dating for environmental stewardship. So it's going to be a good time. All right? I look forward to seeing you all there. Thanks so much, everybody.